Hi everybody, my name is Matt. I am one of the head butchers here at Healthy Butcher Queen.
And I'm Sam. I'm also one of the butchers here at the Queen Street store for Healthy Butcher.
Here is a full side of pork broken down into all of its primals. So just to recap, we have the full head, we have the shoulder, which is the butt, the picnic, and the hock. And then we have our loin section, which is comprised of our rib loin, our short loin, and our top sirloin. In the middle, we have our pork tenderloin. And then down here, we have our spare ribs, our pork belly. We have a little bit of that nice leaf lard, a fresh kidney, and then our ham and our hind hock. From here, we're going to start breaking things down as you would see them in our case on a daily basis. All right, so the first thing I'm going to start with is the head of the pork. So the first thing I do is I just remove the ear. And the ear is definitely more commonly used as pet treats, which is, you know, a wonderful, wonderful thing to do for your pets. You can smoke them, you can braise them, you can slice them thin, you can deep fry them. You can do a lot of fun things with the ear. Once the ear is removed, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start to remove the whole jowl of the animal. This is a really fatty, delicious piece of meat that comes from the head. So I'm just going to make my incision and then start slowly working with the first, say, 1/4 inch of my knife. Just slightly seaming out the cheek from the jaw. Now we have the jowls completely removed. All I'm going to do is clean it up a little bit so it's a nicer, presentable piece of meat. And we can either sell this for the case or we'll trim it down for our own grinds and sausage. Okay, so there's the full jowl, completely cleaned, ready for curing, smoking, braising, whatever it is you want to do. And now you're left over with the last piece of the head. And you know, the wonderful thing you can do with the head still is you can put it into a pot, you can boil it, you can make a nice head cheese or another kind of pork terrine. So every little bit of this animal, from the nose to the tail, is completely usable. All right, so now that the head is off and cleaned up, we're going to focus on the shoulder next. And the shoulder breaks down into two basic parts. You have your pork butt, which makes the most delicious pulled pork, or you can do a nice simple dry roast, or you can cut it into chops, however you like it. And then the bottom half is the picnic, very similar to your pork butt, but it has a little bit more flavor to it, a little bit more fat to it, and it has these delicious country ribs on the other end. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take this over to the bandsaw, and I'm going to cut a couple bone-in shoulder chops.
So what's left here is your picnic. Like I said, this turns into a really fantastic pulled pork. It also is a fantastic piece if you do want to turn this into grinds for sausages. It has a very perfect fat ratio for that.
So next up, I'm going to take the pork short loin, I'm going to bone it out and tie it into a small little boneless pork loin roast, and we'll also do a couple butterfly loin chops. And I'm just going to remove the baby back ribs. You can see a little bit more. So a beautiful thing about this whole loin section is most of this just kind of seams out, and you can do very little knife work to actually remove this whole section, which is pretty nice. A lot of butchery is mostly just like pulling and seaming, and just like flicking the first like quarter inch of your knife. Baby back ribs, the seeds. There's a small membrane that has to be removed. If this is cooked with the membrane on, it kind of really toughens up, almost like paper. So what I do is just get into the foam and then use my towel and just pull out the piece. So trim down some of the fat and the skin. Other than that, you can tie your belly into a nice little porchetta roast. So when you're making your porchetta roast, it's got to score the skin. This will allow the fat underneath to kind of render out a little bit more nicely. You don't want to go down too deep, just enough to kind of let the fat leave in their essence as it's cooked.
Pretty much all I'm going to do here is remove, there is a couple glands on the top of that tenderloin, and there will be a silver skin of elastin underneath. This is the chain of the tenderloin here. This does get removed. Most of the fat on the tenderloin can actually just be peeled off. The whole pork tenderloin, you can cut it down just slightly down the middle and butterfly it open and do it a nice stuffed pork tenderloin. So now we're back to the top sirloin here. To start it off, I'm going to flip it over and take all of that skin off. I'm going to try and save as much fat on this as possible. So when you cook your chops, there's that nice layer of fat on there to help keep it moist. There's just a couple pieces that are removed from the top sirloin. There's this piece on the top. Nicely seams out. To our trim. Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna cut some chops from this now. Just gonna baste this. Here I have these side ribs, or also known as spare ribs. All I'm going to do here really is just clean it up a little bit to nicely square it off. So there is a piece of collagen, as you can see right there, that runs down the entire length. So I'm going to cut right along that collagen. So this is the end of the H-bone right here that we are going to take out first. Like that's my favorite first step. The little piece of meat known as the spider steak on the beef. I'm just going to remove that piece of meat just to make the bone a little bit more visible. Okay. So that is now removed, making the femur a little bit more visible there. Next step I'm going to do is taking all the skin off the outside. Now that the skin is removed, I'm going to remove the femur. I like to start from this end here at the base. See, I start from the base here, just putting my knife at the end to find that bone, and then I start following it up. Making sure the tip of my knife is always touching that femur bone. There's the femur bone. Great, so from here we're just going to remove the baseball from the rest of the ham, which is referred to as the football. Just nicely seams out. This would be known as the sirloin tip if it was on the beef. Or the beef knuckle with the little bone there. And from here for this one, I'm just going to clean up a little bit of the ham, taking out some of the fat and the heel.
Alright, so this is a breakdown of every single cut of pork that you would find in our case on a weekly or daily basis. So starting from the head, we have the ear and the jowl. Moving on to our shoulder, we have our boneless shoulder roast and our bone-in shoulder chops. Here, part of the picnic, we have our country ribs. We have our picnic roast, which makes excellent pulled pork. We have our four-trotter and our pork hock. Into the loin section, we have our baby back ribs, we have our bone-in rib chops, as well as a boneless loin roast. That leads down into our belly section, so we have our spare ribs, and our pork belly for bacon, and our pork belly as little roasts. And then further back into our short loin section, we have our boneless loin roast, some butterfly loin chops, our pork tenderloin, and that leads into our pork top sirloin. After that, we get into our ham. So our ham breaks down into two pieces. We have our smaller baseball ham and our larger football size ham, which leads into our hind trotter. and our last pork hock.
Hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is how we break down pork for the healthy butcher. Not all shops break down pork the exact same way. This is how we break it down for our retail cuts.
You may find different variations from shop to shop, country to country, as well as different names, different terminology. But at the end of the day, if there's something that you're looking for that you don't see, let us know and we'll do our best to help you out and cut exactly what you want.